This started as an ordinary day until I realized my credit card was missing, and who took it shocked me. But the real surprise? What happened when she tried to use it at the mall? The ending is something you have to see to believe, so don't even think about skipping ahead. It was one of those perfectly ordinary Tuesday mornings that, in hindsight, you realize was the calm before the storm. The sun was streaming through the kitchen window, making the dust motes dance in the air, and I was enjoying my favorite ritual, a hot cup of coffee, my feet tucked under me on the old floral armchair, and my phone in hand, scrolling through the latest photos of my grandkids. There's something about seeing their little faces, grinning with missing teeth covered in chocolate or bundled up for soccer, that just makes my heart swell. I was so absorbed in a video of little Emma trying to teach the dog to sit, with mixed results, bless her heart, that I almost didn't hear the voices drifting in from the hallway. But then, clear as day, I caught Ashley's voice. My daughter-in-law has a way of talking that's both sweet and just a little too loud, like she's always on the verge of telling a secret she can't quite keep. "Your mom has enough, she won't even notice," she whispered, but not quietly enough. I paused, my finger hovering over the screen, and listened. There was a rustling, the sound of a purse being unzipped, and then, oh, the unmistakable click of my wallet being opened. I felt my eyebrows shoot up. Now, I'm not saying I'm a detective, but after 35 years of marriage, raising 2 boys, and running a household that's seen everything from science fair volcanoes to surprise visits from the in-laws, you develop a sixth sense for trouble. And Ashley? Well, let's just say she's about as subtle as a marching band in a library. I stayed perfectly still, pretending to be engrossed in my phone, but my ears were on high alert. I heard her giggle, an actual, honest-to-goodness giggle, like she was a teenager sneaking out past curfew. Then, the front door creaked open, and I caught a glimpse of her reflection in the hallway mirror. She was holding my credit card, tapping it against her palm, her eyes sparkling with mischief. For a split second, I almost laughed. Ashley is many things, charming, energetic, and bless her, a little impulsive, but a criminal mastermind she is not. But here's the kicker. She didn't ask. Not a peep. Not a, "Hey mom, do you mind if I use your card for something?" Or even a sheepish, "I'll pay you back, I promise." Just a quick swipe and out the door, probably thinking I was too busy with my crossword puzzle to notice. I watched her from the window as she practically skipped down the driveway, keys jingling, purse swinging, and my card clutched in her hand like she'd just won the lottery. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why didn't you stop her? Well, let me tell you. After decades of family drama, sometimes it's more interesting to see how things play out. Besides, I was curious. What could possibly be so important that Ashley would risk the wrath of her mother-in-law? Was it a sale at the mall? A last-minute gift from my son? Or maybe, just maybe, she thought I wouldn't notice at all. Ladies, have you ever had someone underestimate you? Isn't it just the best feeling when you prove them wrong? I sat back, sipped my coffee, and let my mind wander. I thought about all the times I'd been underestimated, by my kids, by my husband, even by myself. There was the time I fixed the leaky faucet after my husband insisted we needed a plumber. Or the time I organized the entire family reunion, and everyone was shocked it went off without a hitch. There's a certain satisfaction in quietly knowing you're a step ahead, even when everyone else thinks you're just puttering around the house. But this was different. This was my daughter-in-law. Someone I'd welcomed into the family, someone I'd tried to make feel at home. And here she was, sneaking around like a teenager, thinking I wouldn't notice a missing credit card. I couldn't help but feel a mix of amusement and annoyance. On one hand, it was almost flattering. Did she really think I was so well off, so oblivious, that a few $100s would just slip through the cracks? On the other hand, it stung a little. Trust is a funny thing. It takes years to build and only a moment to chip away. I finished my coffee, set the mug down, and glanced at the clock. Ashley had a good head start, but I wasn't worried. I knew all her favorite haunts, the mall, the fancy coffee shop, that little boutique with the overpriced candles. I could have called her, could have marched right down there and demanded my card back. But where's the fun in that? Sometimes you have to let people dig their own holes. Besides, I had a plan. I reached for my phone, opened my banking app, and watched as the little icon spun, waiting for the transactions to start rolling in. As I sat there, I couldn't help but chuckle. Life has a way of keeping you on your toes, even when you think you've seen it all. And as for Ashley, well, she was about to learn that this old dog still had a few tricks up her sleeve. After all, just because I'm over 50 doesn't mean I'm over the hill. If anything, I'm just getting started. So tell me, have you ever had a sneaky tap moment in your family? Did you let it play out? Or did you step in right away? Sometimes, the best stories come from the moments we least expect, and the people who think we're not paying attention. If you've ever seen a woman on a mission at the mall, you know it's a sight to behold. And let me tell you, Ashley was on a mission. She hit the mall like a tornado in a shoe store, full of energy, a little bit reckless, and leaving a trail of chaos in her wake. I could just imagine her, practically skipping through those shiny glass doors, her eyes lighting up at the sight of all those window displays. She's always had a flair for the dramatic, and today, with my credit card burning a hole in her purse, she was ready to put on a show. I pictured her strutting past the food court, ignoring the pretzel stand for once and heading straight for the luxury section. You know the one, where the handbags cost more than my first car, and the sales associates look you up and down before deciding if you're worth their time. Ashley, bless her heart, never let that intimidate her. She'd toss her hair, flash a big smile, and act like she belonged there. And with my card in hand, she probably felt like she owned the place. I could see it all in my mind's eye. Ashley, arms already full of shopping bags, waltzing up to the counter at her favorite boutique. "I'll take 2 of those and 1 of those, please," she'd say, as if she were on a game show and the clock was ticking. She's always had expensive taste. Designer shoes, silk scarves, those little bottles of perfume that cost more than a nice dinner out. I could almost hear her laughter echoing through the store, charming the sales girls and making friends with anyone who'd listen. But here's where things get interesting. You see, I may be over 50, but I'm not over the hill. Far from it. I'd noticed my card missing almost immediately. Years of running a household will do that to you. I know exactly how many eggs are in the fridge, how many towels are in the linen closet, and most importantly, where my credit cards are at all times. So when I saw that empty slot in my wallet, I didn't panic. I just smiled to myself and reached for my phone. Now let's be honest, who doesn't have their bank on speed dial these days? Between online shopping, grandkids with sticky fingers, and the occasional "oops, I lost my purse at the grocery store" moment, I've learned to stay prepared. I called the bank, explained the situation, and reported the card stolen faster than you can say, designer handbag. The woman on the other end of the line was sympathetic, and I could tell she'd heard it all before. "Don't worry, ma'am," she said. "We'll take care of it right away." And just like that, my card was frozen. No more shopping sprees for Ashley. As I hung up the phone, I felt a little thrill of satisfaction. Have you ever had to outsmart someone who thought they were outsmarting you? It's a little scary, sure. There's always that moment of doubt, that tiny voice in your head that wonders if you're doing the right thing. But oh, the satisfaction when it all comes together. I couldn't help but chuckle, imagining Ashley's face when she realized her little adventure was about to hit a brick wall. Meanwhile, back at the mall, Ashley was living her best life. She'd probably started at the shoe store. She can never resist a good pair of heels, then moved on to the jewelry counter, and finally made her way to the handbags. I could see her now, holding up a purse to the light, turning it over in her hands, and imagining all the places she'd take it. She'd chat with the sales associate, maybe drop a hint about her generous mother-in-law, and then with a flourish, hand over my card. But here's the thing about life. It has a way of humbling us when we least expect it. As Ashley stood at the register, waiting for the transaction to go through, I imagined she felt invincible. She probably didn't even notice the cashier's raised eyebrow or the way the other customers glanced her way. She was too busy planning her next stop, too caught up in the excitement of the moment. Back at home, I settled into my chair, feeling a mix of amusement and anticipation. I knew Ashley would be in for a surprise, and I couldn't wait to see how she'd handle it. Would she try to talk her way out of it? Would she call me, flustered and apologetic? Or would she double down, insisting it was all a misunderstanding? I'd seen it all before. Family has a way of keeping you on your toes. As the minutes ticked by, I found myself reflecting on all the times I'd had to outsmart someone who thought they had the upper hand. It's a delicate dance, isn't it? You want to teach a lesson, but you don't want to break their spirit. You want to protect what's yours, but you also want to keep the peace. It's a balancing act, and after 50-some years, I like to think I've gotten pretty good at it. So there I sat, sipping my second cup of coffee, waiting for the phone to ring. I knew it wouldn't be long before Ashley realized her shopping spree had come to an abrupt end. And when it did, well, let's just say I was ready. After all, sometimes the best way to teach a lesson is to let life do the talking. And as for Ashley, she was about to learn that you should never, ever underestimate a woman who knows exactly where her credit cards are and isn't afraid to use her wits to keep her family in line. Ashley had always been the picture of confidence, especially when she was in her element, shopping. She strutted through the luxury section of the mall, her arms weighed down with glossy bags, her head held high, and a satisfied little smirk playing on her lips. She'd picked out everything she'd ever wanted but never dared to buy. A buttery soft leather purse, a silk scarf in the perfect shade of blue, a pair of sunglasses that made her look like a movie star. She was living out her own little fantasy, and with my card in her hand, she felt untouchable. I could just imagine her, tossing her hair and flashing that card like it was a golden ticket. She probably thought she'd pulled off the heist of the century. But as she approached the register, the mood in the store shifted. The cashier, a sharp-eyed woman named Linda, had seen it all in her years behind the counter. Every kind of shopper, every kind of scam, every kind of story. Linda was the type who could spot trouble a mile away, and she didn't miss a thing. Ashley, oblivious to the subtle change in atmosphere, plopped her mountain of bags on the counter and handed over my card with a flourish, her smile just a little too smug. Linda took the card, her eyes flicking from Ashley's face to the name embossed on the plastic, then back again. There was a brief, almost imperceptible pause. Ashley, still riding high on her shopping spree, didn't notice. She was too busy chatting about the weather, the sale, the generous mother-in-law who'd let her splurge. But Linda's expression had shifted from polite to professional, her lips pressed into a thin line. She swiped the card, and for a moment, everything seemed normal. The register beeped, the screen flashed, and then nothing. Linda's brow furrowed. She tried again, slower this time, her eyes never leaving Ashley's face. "I'm sorry, ma'am," Linda said, her voice suddenly serious, cutting through the hum of the store. "But this card was reported as stolen. By its owner." The words hung in the air like a thunderclap. Ashley's smile faltered, her cheeks draining of color faster than my patience at a family reunion. She blinked, her mouth opening and closing as she tried to process what she'd just heard. For a split second, she looked like a deer caught in headlights, wide-eyed, frozen, and completely out of her depth. She tried to laugh it off, waving her hand as if this was all some big misunderstanding. "Oh, that can't be right," she stammered, her voice a little too high. "It's my mother-in-law's card. She knows I'm here. She said it was fine." But Linda wasn't having it. She'd heard every excuse in the book, and she wasn't about to let Ashley sweet-talk her way out of this one. "I'm afraid I'll have to hold on to the card," Linda said, her tone firm but not unkind. "And I'll need to call security." Store policy. Ashley's eyes darted around the store, searching for an escape route, but there was nowhere to go. The other shoppers had started to notice the commotion, their curious glances turning into open stares. Ashley's confidence evaporated, replaced by a flush of embarrassment that crept up her neck and settled on her cheeks. She tried to protest, to explain, but the words came out in a jumbled mess. I can call her. She'll tell you. This is just a mistake." But Linda was already on the phone, her voice calm and measured as she explained the situation to mall security. Ashley stood there, clutching her purse, her hands trembling just a little. The minutes stretched on, each one heavier than the last. She shifted from foot to foot, her eyes fixed on the floor, wishing she could just disappear. Have you ever been in a situation where you wished the ground would open up and swallow you whole? Poor Ashley. Well, maybe not that poor. When the security guard arrived, he was polite but firm. He asked Ashley a few questions, took down her information, and explained that the store would be holding the merchandise until the matter was resolved. Ashley nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. She handed over the bags, her dream shopping spree dissolving before her eyes. The guard escorted her out of the store, and as she walked past the other shoppers, she could feel their eyes on her, Some curious, some sympathetic, some just glad it wasn't them. Outside the store, Ashley slumped onto a bench, her head in her hands. The adrenaline had worn off, leaving her with nothing but regret and a gnawing sense of humiliation. She pulled out her phone, her fingers shaking as she dialed my number. I let it ring a few times before answering, just to let her stew a little. When I finally picked up, her voice was small and shaky. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I didn't think, I just wanted—" I listened, letting her get it all out. There was no need to scold her. The lesson had already been learned. Sometimes, life has a way of teaching us the hard way, and Ashley had just gotten a crash course in consequences. I told her to come home, that we'd talk about it, and that everything would be all right. After all, family is family, even when they make mistakes. As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but feel a little sorry for her. We've all had moments where we thought we could get away with something, only to be caught red-handed. It's a humbling experience and one that sticks with you. But I also felt a sense of satisfaction. Sometimes, the best lessons are the ones we learn ourselves, even if they come with a little embarrassment and a lot of humility. Ashley's shopping spree had ended with a lot less sparkle than she'd planned. But maybe, just maybe, she'd think twice before underestimating her mother-in-law again. And as for me, well, I'd just proven that you're never too old to outsmart the young ones, and that sometimes a little bit of wisdom goes a long way. When Ashley finally came home that evening, the energy she'd left with was nowhere to be found. She slipped through the front door so quietly, I almost didn't hear her. If you've ever seen a church mouse at midnight, you'd know exactly the look. Shoulders hunched, eyes downcast, moving as if she could blend into the wallpaper. I was sitting at the kitchen table, pretending to read the newspaper, but really, I was waiting for her. The house was unusually still, the kind of quiet that settles in after a storm, when everyone is just a little bit on edge and waiting to see what comes next. Ashley hovered in the doorway for a moment, clutching her purse like a lifeline. She looked up at me, her eyes wide and apologetic, and I could see the embarrassment still painted across her face. For a second, she looked like a little girl who'd been caught sneaking cookies before dinner. She opened her mouth to speak, but the words seemed to get stuck in her throat. I could tell she was searching for the right thing to say, something that would make it all better. But apologies are never easy, especially when you know you've crossed a line. Before she could stammer out her first, "I'm sorry," I stood up and walked over to the coffee pot. I poured her a cup, just the way she likes it, 2 sugars, a splash of cream, and handed it to her. "Here," I said, my voice gentle but firm. "Sit down, let's talk." She took the cup with both hands, her fingers trembling just a little, and sat across from me at the table. For a moment, we just sat there in silence, the only sound the ticking of the old kitchen clock and the distant hum of the refrigerator. Finally, Ashley took a deep breath and started to speak. "I'm really sorry," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what I was thinking. I saw the card and I thought it would be okay. I didn't mean to cause so much trouble." She looked up at me, her eyes shining with unshed tears, and I could see the genuine regret in her expression. It's funny how, in moments like these, all the frustration and annoyance just melts away, leaving only the love you have for your family, even when they drive you up the wall. I reached across the table and patted her hand. "Ashley, next time just ask. I might have said yes, or at least given you my old card." The corners of her mouth twitched, and then, to my relief, she let out a shaky laugh. The tension in the room eased, and suddenly, it didn't feel so heavy anymore. We both started to laugh, the kind of laughter that bubbles up when you realize how ridiculous the whole situation was. It felt good to clear the air, to let go of the anger and just be 2 women, sharing a moment of honesty over a cup of coffee. As we talked, the story of her mall misadventure came tumbling out. She told me about the look on the cashier's face, the awkward silence as security was called, and the walk of shame past the other shoppers. I couldn't help but chuckle at her description of Linda, the no-nonsense cashier who'd seen right through her. "She looked at me like I was a naughty teenager," Ashley said, shaking her head. "I haven't felt that embarrassed since high school." I told her that Linda sounded like my kind of woman, sharp, observant, and not afraid to do the right thing. We talked about family, about trust, and about the little ways we sometimes take each other for granted. I admitted that I'd noticed the card was missing right away, and that I'd called the bank before she even made it to the mall. Ashley's eyes widened in surprise, and then she burst out laughing. "You really are one step ahead of me, aren't you?" she said, shaking her head in disbelief. I grinned and told her that after raising 2 boys and managing a household for decades, you learn a thing or two about staying on your toes. The conversation turned to lighter topics, her favorite stores, the latest family gossip, and the grandkids' upcoming soccer game. The more we talked, the more the tension faded, replaced by a sense of understanding and forgiveness. We both knew that this was one of those stories we'd laugh about for years to come, a cautionary tale to share at family gatherings and holiday dinners. Remember the time Ashley tried to outsmart Mom and ended up getting caught by the cashier? We'd say, and everyone would groan and roll their eyes. But deep down, they'd know it was all part of being a family. As the evening wore on, I realized that sometimes the best lessons come wrapped in a little bit of chaos and a whole lot of love. Family can drive you crazy, push your buttons, and test your patience. But at the end of the day, we're all just trying to get by, sometimes with a little more style than sense. We make mistakes, we learn from them, and if we're lucky, we find a way to laugh about it together. So, what do you think? Have you ever had an Ashley moment in your family? How did you handle it? Did you let it play out, or did you step in right away? I'd love to hear your stories, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that we're all in this together, and sometimes the best way to get through life's little messes is with a sense of humor and a strong cup of coffee. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and join our community of wise, wonderful women. After all, every family has its moments, and every moment is a chance to learn, laugh, and love a little more.